Jesus. Yeah, we belong to Jesus Christ. We belong to Jesus. Yeah, we belong to Jesus Christ.
So there's a few things before that we just dive in there and get ready. One is if you consider yourself a kid in a grown adult suit today, we're glad that you're here. There's kind of been a shift, and I want to just reiterate the shift that kind of it's been happening in our church, and kind of an awakening and an illuminating thing is what we want to try to do really intentionally is that we want to equip the students, the student aged 4th grade and above and 3rd grade below, to be engaging in what we all do corporately. And so we've gotten these bulletins, and sometimes they can seem very kiddish, and sometimes they can seem maybe over heads, but what we really like to do is that even for some of you, you can grab, if you're an adult, you can grab one of those bulletins. And if you kind of like to doodle, if you like to engage yourself that way, we welcome you to be interactive that way. And so, but what we're really trying to do is that we're really trying to engage the family. And why we chose 3rd grade and below is because we feel like that maybe there is a shift in thinking that happens right there at that age. And we went and done test subjects of what other churches are doing as well. And so it's not just a shift in which we said, oh, we just came up with this. We've looked at other models as well. And so, but I'm glad that we have teenagers and preteens and some that would still consider themselves children in our services. The other thing that I wanted to address is that I am so happy and so glad that we got the band back together, right? Yeah. Bob's trumpet's been out of commission for a while, and so we just all took a sabbatical of playing together for a while, and so we're blowing out some cobwebs, and some of you, Cassandra and Daly and Bob, are trying to re-exercise their lips back to it, and so appreciate you guys for taking the time. And it takes work, it takes effort, it takes showing up early and practicing some of these songs, and trusting someone like me to follow somebody that doesn't know how to read music, and trying to figure out how that they're going to follow along with someone that does know how to read music, and how that all works. It's sometimes it can be difficult, but I appreciate you guys, so thank you for playing with us. We're going to kind of be all over the place, but if you hadn't heard me say it recently, I'm going to say it again. I'm glad to be your pastor. This last week, I did something brand new, and Cassandra kind of was the cheerleader behind it. She says, Kason, you need to, if not to go write sermons, you need to go be away from us for a while. If not for your sake, for my sake. And so Wednesday mid-morning to Friday morning, I just checked myself into a hotel. I brought my computer and my resources, and I did some sermon writing. And some of you just could not call me. And I don't mean that as an insult, but I just want to say that there is something, even if you intentionally, like myself, intentionally try to get away, you just cannot shut off wanting to be with a certain people. And so if you tried your best not to call me, I appreciate that, but I also want you to know that I appreciated those who called me and that were going through some type of hurt or some type of concern, and thank you for trusting me with those. I just want you to say, I want to say that. that don't hesitate. And I'm still praying with you, because maybe we're capable of really good things in our dark days. And maybe if you're one of those people that find yourself in a dark day today, you're not here by accident, and maybe this sermon is for you, because it's for me as well. Because here's the truth. For most of us, a majority of us, I would go out on a limb and saying that our dark days are just minor. That our dark days sometimes overshadow the days in which that are bright. And so sometimes we just get a snapshot of life. Sometimes we just get this little picture. I had the opportunity to go to state basketball games yesterday. 2 days ago, Friday, and ran across some people that I hadn't seen in a very long time from Visai. And I talked with this gentleman by the name of Cheryl and his son, Brian. And Brian said, "You guys look like that you're doing good." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, on Facebook, it looks like that you guys are really, really happy." And I said, "Well, you're only seeing the snapshot. You got to see what happens before the picture and what happens after the picture. It's like, won't you smile? No, put a smile. No, stop crying. And then everybody, 1, 2, 3, cheese, and then back at it again. It's just the snapshot," is what I said. And they said, "Oh, I guess that's true for all of us." Because I think sometimes we just get snapshots. And I've said this before, that, those of us that are social, that like to post pictures, we only post the good pictures. You don't post the bad ones, right? Like, here, somebody take a picture of me preaching right now, and then get my good side, right? And then post that, and how happy I'm going to be whenever you do that. We only get the good snapshots, but we don't really see sometimes even the hurting that is behind some of those pictures. And just to be comical, Carrie, there's a couple of pictures I want you to go through, okay? Like this picture right here. It is not a two-headed dog. One dog is in between the guy's legs, and the other one is on the other side. But it sure does look like, hey, that guy's walking a two-headed dog. We don't get the full story. We only get just the snapshot, and sometimes it can skew our thoughts. Go to the next one, Carrie. Anything wrong with this picture? It looks like this woman has a foot for a hand. Gorgeous. But no, that is just the way that the picture looked like whenever the snapshot had happened. We don't think, man, there was somebody out there that had a hand for a foot, or a foot for a hand. Go to the next one. I like this one. No, he's not floating, but there is a stain in the asphalt that makes it look like that he's floating in air right there. And probably one of my favorite ones, because I can be critical of Kevin Durant, this next one. A white-headed Kevin Durant. If you don't know who Kevin Durant is, he has white hair. No, we don't probably look to Kevin Durant anymore as somebody that makes wise choices anymore. But this is probably the reason why that we got rid of him, right? So is that all that I have, Carrie, as far as the snapshots are concerned? I figured so. So we kind of have these bases of truth. Some of us take snapshots and we say this is kind of where our truth lies, right? Sometimes that if you ever really know somebody in a bad moment or a bad season and you met them for the very first time, you would probably say, well, that's not a very nice person. If you didn't know them and they were having a really bad day. And we sometimes just take snapshots of really the worst moments in certain people's life, and we have that stigmata in there. Now, I appreciate, again, I come back to saying, I love the themes of our church. And the theme is that we are in a church body, and I hope we are striving to participate and actively engage in this big, tough word called forgiveness. Because sometimes the thing is not always the thing. I know, baffling you with wisdom right now, but I'm going to say it again. Sometimes the thing is not always the thing. If so-and-so comes at you and you're living life in faith with them, and it seems like that you're under a personal attack, I guarantee you that a majority of the time, the thing is not always the thing. And a lot of times, it's not about you. It's about what's happening outside of the snapshot is what ends up happening. Now, last week we took a snapshot of a character who seems like that they were actively involved and an active participant in hanging Jesus upon the cross. Last week we talked a little bit about this Protestant role of what whenever we make a cross, we don't put Jesus on there. And I love that image. I love the image of an empty cross, not because we like it sanitized and not because I appreciate it sanitized, but I like the theme behind it, the knowing that Jesus didn't stay upon the cross, that he conquered death, that the tomb is empty. And so for us as Protestant, we live under the shadow of an empty cross. And when all that entails, to know that we can live in a resurrected life. But there's also this Catholicism, this Catholic view of the crucifix that I think that is a very, very important role. Kind of like Advent, we play the actor or actress's themes as if that we go through a season as if that Christ has not been born yet, but yet we anticipate it to happen. And what Christ's birth means for us as far as our rebirth. And so we are in the season of Lent. Anybody have a bingo yet? I knew that Lent was on your bingo cards. We live in the season of Lent in which that we kind of put Jesus back upon the cross. We kind of look back on this season in which that it's this gory image, and we looked at this character by the name of Judas, and we said that Judas, not mile by mile, just one day he decided, oh hey, I'm gonna try to be very active in killing Jesus. No, we believe that maybe inch by inch that Judas kind of backed away and kind of was being a self-preserving type of guy. But today we're going to look at a person by the name of Caiaphas. I don't know if I pronounced him just quite right, but there is a picture from the Passion of Christ. Yeah, look at that. Look at that guy. Caiaphas, he was this high religious authoritative figure. Keep it there for a while, because I like this is where I got my stink eye from, Melody. I was looking at this picture today, or this last week, and I was just thinking, okay, this guy looks like a pretty shady character, and it looks like that he's up to no good, right? But this is just a snapshot. This is just a picture of Caiaphas. Now we know who he is, right? Here's the thing about Caiaphas. This guy that is a religious leader and somebody that has devoted their life to studying the Old Testament. I would pose to you that being this gray-bearded, older gentleman, that some wisdom has probably been brought into his life. Some tradition has also been brought into his life. And that he probably, actually, I can know without a doubt, Caiaphas knew more about the Old Testament than I do right now. And so, with that in mind, Caiaphas had a certain type of responsibility to the church people, to the people, the Jewish people, the tradition and the studies of it, because he was the learned person. He's the one that was deemed to be the wise guy, in a good sense. He was the one that people came to listen to sermons. He was the one that came and did the translations. Whenever the scroll was open, he was the one either reading it or teaching it. He would also be the authoritative figure, the one that would say, as far as Messiah is concerned, we expect a Messiah. He would be the one to tell you, we expect a Messiah. And what is it going to look like? And he would be the one to kind of map it out, what the Messiah looked like. So he was anticipating a Messiah. This Old Testament scholar was anticipating a Messiah. And then there's this Jesus character that comes upon the scene. This Jesus character that comes upon the scene, and he is making quite a bit of ruckus. He's not only making ruckus in the Jewish tradition, the followers of the law, because it seems like that he was redefining those things, but he was also making a ruckus in the Roman governing authorities. And so for Caiaphas, he was thinking, if I don't do something about this Jesus, then maybe the whole religious community, the whole Jewish followers would be at stake as well. If I don't muzzle this particular guy, he had this sense of responsibility. I believe that Caiaphas had good intentions where he would say, I have the responsibility of following or leading this people. And if I don't muzzle this particular person, then it means that probably knowing that the Roman officials were known for crucifying and putting people on the cross, what he envisions whenever he laid his head down, and if he thinks that he is not going to do something, he looks like a bunch of Jewish people were going to get crucified on the cross. If not his whole people that were following him, then him, if he was not going to do something about Jesus. He's thinking to himself, what's one guy versus the whole Jewish race? And so this self-preservation, this responsibility put upon his shoulders to come to this moral conclusion. One guy, the whole nation. And the more that we have that conversation about a guy that was actively in pursuit of crucifying Jesus, then we can come to a conclusion about ourselves as saying, maybe, just maybe, I'm not too far removed from a character like Caiaphas. That maybe I make decisions very similar to a guy like the stink eye that you have before you. Snapshots. Kind of puts him in a bad light, doesn't it? There's this other story, this very important story, and it's the text that was given to me today in following a lectionary, and it happens to be what we're going to go through Wednesday morning in a Bible study as well. It's Old Testament story, very important. It's very important so much that we know about faith, what we know about through the story in Exodus, where we're going to be at Exodus. There's a story here that is a good one, and here it is, and this is the theme of it. God fights for God's people. God fights for God's people, and all the people of God said. And here's the thing. Carry one more picture. There's an artistic, and I know it's not very large, and you can kind of squint at it, but you can kind of tell what is going on. This is an artist's depiction of what is going on in the parting of the Red Sea. You can see that where that there was water. Okay, I'm going to say this a couple of times during the sermon, and I promise I'm going to get you out of here by noon. Where there was water, there's water no more. And they walked on dry land. And so in chapter 15, we're going to be in chapter 17, but I'm just going to lead you up to what has happened here. That they have just seen a miracle. They've seen the Red Sea part, and where there was water was no more. They walked on dry land. Just the chapter later, we would think something changed in their heart for what they just saw. And it did. For maybe what seems like 45 seconds. That they were changed for maybe 45 seconds of what they just saw. And then chapter 15, just a chapter later, after that you've just seen this great event happen, something like this. Oh, Moses, did you bring us out here for us to just die of thirst? They came to this freshwater oasis, and they tasted the water, and it was bitter, and it was not good to drink. And so they grumbled. Oh, we just saw the parting of the Red Sea. We crossed on dry land, and now we're out here. We're just going to die of thirst. Moses, is this what you brought us out here to do? And so what Moses does is he finds a tree, they cut it down, and then they put it in the water, and it makes the water, I would say, because that I've owned a hot tub in my life, I would say the pH balance was just a little bit different. And so what happened with this bark is that they threw it out there, and all of a sudden the pH balance became balanced again and became good to drink. We can't say that. What we can ultimately say is what we have just experienced the chapter before is a miracle. And what we experience in chapter 15 is another miracle that had happened. It's because God fights for God's people. And then they see that in chapter 15. You would think that they would be changed, in which they were changed, maybe for 45 seconds. There's another chapter in chapter 16. They get mad at Moses again. And they say, at least whenever we were back in Egypt, there was chicken in every pot. We had stew. Every family had something good to eat. Although that we were in slavery, at least we had something to eat. And so they grumble to Moses, and Moses implores to God, and God hears him. And you know what God does? God provides. He provides this flaky stuff that ends up falling out of the sky, and they call it manna. You want to know what manna what translated is manna? Here it is. What is it? I like it. I like it because it's like if you woke up first thing in the morning and you say, "Where's breakfast?" And somebody says, "Well, here it is," and you say, "What is it?" I imagine that happening every single morning. What's for breakfast? This is for breakfast. What is it? Manna. No, what is it? It's like one of those old times joke, like who's on first and what's on second and all that. What's for breakfast? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? Yeah, you're right. Yes, you got it. What is it? Chapter 17. Now this is where we're going to read. You would think that something has changed in their heart. You would think. But, which it did, for 45 seconds. Chapter 17. There again, verse 1. The whole Israelite community set out for the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded them. They camped in Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Come on, Moses. Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord your God to test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us, our children, and our livestock die of thirst?" You can kind of hear the frustration, can't you? You can kind of hear the frustration. Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." Then the Lord answered Moses, "Walk on ahead of the people. Take with you some of the elders of the Israelites to take with your hand the staff in which you struck the Nile." I think this is very important. Very, very important. One, I want you to take some people with you. Go out ahead, and I want them to be witnesses, okay? Because it seems like that we have a problem in the community of faith of forgetting. So I'm going to need you to take some people with you as witnesses. Oh, and remember whenever you were back there in Egypt, remember that there was a staff which did a lot of things. You know, you threw it down on the ground and it became a snake. You picked it up and it became a staff again. Remember whenever you put it in the Nile and it became bloody? Remember all these miracles that should be a remembrance of how I have provided for them. Maybe I need a little bit of more, I don't know, things to help the people of the community of faith remember the things in which they have done for you, done what I've done for them. So, take some people with you and take that staff that you struck the Nile and go. And I will stand there before you by the rock of Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called this place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelite quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, here it is the Lord among us or not? Do you ever question that? Do you ever find yourself questioning that? And if you do, I'm not here to place guilt upon you, because the truth is, you're in great company. That question puts you in great company. Some heroes of the faith would even ask the question, well, is he among us or not? Is he among us or not? Some of the prophets would call this period of time in which that they were in exile or trying to get to the promised land, this honeymoon period. A honeymoon period. And for us, we think of honeymoons as really a season of no fights, no quarrels, or anything like that. Some of us would say, as far as honeymoons are concerned, honeymoons don't have the greatest connotation. Because, shall we go there? Because I would say, Cassandra, for you and I, we didn't live together before we got married, but I moved her into a house that I lived in for 6 to 7 years. And how awkward that is saying, I'm the king of this household, and now I'm bringing in a queen. Now things are starting to get a little bit dicey here. I've had all my stuff in the closet. Now I have to make space in the closet for somebody else. I've had a particular lifestyle that I had, canola oil and vegetable oil, and I used it to fry stuff with. Well, that's gone out of the window. Now it's salads and all organic stuff now, isn't it? So all these different things that get shook up, which we should be in a honeymoon period, really what was a moment in time in which, if we were super honest with you, which that we are, and we've talked to other couples, is that the most challenging moments of our lives was the honeymoon. It was the figuring each other out, which is also not all, now looking on it, not all of it was bad. But it was really trying to figure each other out. It was a honeymoon and all that entails, but it was also figuring each other out. And we would say in relation to this, is that for the nation of Israel, this was a honeymoon period, back and forth. Are you going to be my people or not? God is looking at them and he's saying, all these things that I've done for you, I believe in the back of God's mind is that we're going to be in the desert for 40 years. Are you going to be my people or not? And in turn, giving it to the Israelite people, they're going to say, is God with us or not? Well, look up, there's a pillar of fire and a cloud right there in front of you. Why? How dare you ask the question? Because sometimes the snapshot is not always the thing. The thing is not always the thing. And I believe that sometimes in snapshots, we get to see the darkest moments, and it doesn't always tell the entire story. Sometimes I wish that we had a panoramic view. I like the option now that is on your iPhones, that you get to take the panoramic shot and see the wider image. I also like the Facebook option in which that you can now hold your phone in a place and you can act like that you're actually there and you're looking at the picture as you're doing the panoramic thing. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it exists. Trust me. Because sometimes just seeing a little snapshot, you don't get to see the big picture. And I think that that's the problem in which that the people of Israel had, is that sometimes that they just see the snapshot of what's in front of them. Every single time, every chapter 15, chapter 16, chapter 17, it seems like that it's like, I only want to take care of what's happening right here in front of me. Did you hear that sense of preoccupation? Well, they're thirsty there. Right there they're thirsty, and that's when they want it. Boy, that seems like a lot, like it's telling our culture right there. I want nachos and I want it now. I want to eat 10 till 12. I don't want to, so I'm not going to church. I'm really preoccupied with my time schedule. And it seems like that there was a lot of that preoccupation that was going on there. But maybe as you are sitting in comfortable pews this morning, you would ask the question, is the Lord among us or not? Okay, here's my favorite part. Okay, aha moment, I'm giving it away. Here it is. We ask that question for many reasons, and here are a couple, okay? Ask the question. And maybe if you've been a part of ministry or the church for quite some time, you know that this Christianity doesn't come with a money-back guaranteed. I know I can't be a really great salesperson if I say this to you, okay? But this is the truth. It just doesn't. I know that there are some people out there who that believe in the prosperity gospel. And the prosperity gospel goes like this. There's an equation. You do B and C, you get D. Okay? That doesn't always happen that way, because the truth of the matter is that even for Jesus, there is a thing called the cup, in which that even he would pray to God. This cup represents the cup of suffering. And we just dropped the ball today. It would be really great to take communion today. But it was a cup that represented a cup of suffering, which was a cup in which that in some shape or form you and I are going to have to partake because we live in this life. What is your cup? But don't understand Christianity as a means in which you can navigate around something like cancer. Don't think that just because that you've lined yourself up with God doesn't mean that you can't navigate around bankruptcy. Just because that you're a Christian doesn't mean that you can't, that there's not going to be wilderness moments. Faith doesn't mean that you can overcome those things per se. What it ultimately means is that faith ultimately means is that you're not alone in the wilderness. Obviously, we can answer the question here in these comfortable pews. Is God amongst us or not? Oh, it feels like it. Yeah, things are good, right? But for some of us, if we're really honest, we'd say we're going through dark moments and dark times in our lives. And for some of us, even though that you're not going through a dark time at the moment, you don't have to hit rewind very far and you would say, oh, I found the dark moment. But faith means that you're not alone in the wilderness. And those of you that feel like you've been sentenced to the wilderness, your wounds aren't self-inflicted, though no fault to your own, but dark days seem like that it's always in front of you. And it's okay to ask the question. I'll give you permission. It is okay to ask the question, is God amongst me or not? Is God with me? Is God for me or not? Can I just give you permission? You can ask the question. I think it's important to ask the question, actually. Don't avoid it. And here's a word that we don't use we don't use it enough if we do use it. This word called incarnation. This word that we don't use often enough, probably around here, but what the incarnation means is that God takes on skin and flesh and has really terrible days, so that you know over and over and over again that you are never beyond the reach of God, who knows darkness. Your darkness is not so dark that God cannot reach to you in that darkness. One of the main reasons why Jesus came, he was named Emmanuel, and his name is God with us. He put on skin and flesh, and he breathed, became human, so that he could sense the suffering that humanity does, and so that he knows what it's like to go along with you in the middle of that dark times. If you question that, this is where I think that Catholics sometimes get it right. Hanging a crucifix on their wall or around their necks is because you don't have to look very further to know whether or not that you have ever walked alone in this life than looking at Jesus hanging up on a cross. is the Lord among us or not? I hope that you sense my humor when I say this, but anybody like driving slow by car accidents? I mean, I don't know where our preoccupation is with the carnage. I mean, not necessarily for humans, but I mean just the cars of just like, oh my goodness, you know, what was going on in the car beforehand, and I hope that they survived. But it seems like that we are preoccupied with kind of like that. But I'm fascinated by people with religious doubts. I want to sit with you. I think that there's something good about the person of faith who can ask the question, is God amongst us or not? And right now can be bad if you're isolated from the community of faith. Those questions can definitely be bad. Go ask those questions by yourself and see where you find yourself. Most of the times it's the depressing scenario. Sometimes there's seasons that last, and sometimes there's seasons that I read this last week in a hotel room about Mother Teresa, how she would claim in her lifetime that she felt like that there was decades of silence. I don't know how that lands upon you, but for some reason, I find comfort in that, not because that it's like a car accident, I'm just like, wow, but knowing the life of Mother Teresa saying, even if you don't speak, even if you don't change my scenario, I'm still going to do what I feel like that I'm called to do. Decades where it felt like that you didn't hear from God, decades, Mother Teresa. Okay. I can just tell you, I haven't felt that. I don't know what God was doing with Mother Teresa, but I don't feel like that I've gone through decades of dry spells. I have gone through dry spells, but praise be to God, it hasn't been decades. I got some good news and bad news here, okay? The bad news is, if you dragged your wilderness and you're here today, the bad news is that I'm not going to leave you here with a fixer. I can't fix you today. I don't know if I can. I know that I can't. That's all the bad news you're going to hear today. The rest is all good news. The good news is, there's not an exit from the wilderness, but you don't have to get mad at God for that. But the good news is that God's not absent. God is always with you. Can I leave you just with this thought? As far as snapshots are concerned, don't make an idol. Hear me. Don't make an idol out of the snapshots, especially about your life and how that you approach God. Don't make an idol of it and think that just in this moment, because God is trustworthy. He is trustworthy. Don't make a snapshot of the darkness. Have you ever tried to take a picture without a flash in the dark and how it come up? And you think, what is going on there? It looks like a bunch of, I don't know what's going on. Don't make an idol out of that. In your wilderness, don't make an idol out of the wilderness. But I pray for the grace and the strength that perhaps that will be meditated throughout the warm bodies that are in our congregation today, that might even be on the larger vision, this larger picture, so that your darkness can be placed in proper perspective, that if you're going through darkness, let's look at the bigger picture. And when we say, I'm going through a dark moment, maybe there's moments in time to ask the question. You're going to find somebody tomorrow. And although that they will not verbalize it with this particular question, they won't say, is God with me or not? In some shape or form, you're going to face somebody tomorrow. And they're not going to say it in that term, but they're going to somehow say it and verbalize it, whether it's non-verbally, with their life, or with their mouth. In some shape or form, they're going to ask the question, is God with us or not? And it gives you the moment in time as you are a warm, faith-believing body, part of the body of Christ, to say, oh, I know without a doubt He is. Now, I might not be able to help you with your scenario. I might not get an exit. I don't have an exit strategy out of the wilderness, but I know who's with you. Here in a moment, we're going to say a prayer, and I'm going to say, there's the door. Exit strategy, right? Maybe right now you're thinking, man, I can't wait to get out of this wilderness. But would you go in the confidence and knowing that you have a God that goes with you even in the wilderness? And I hope that you find that encouraging, because sometimes we need reminders. I don't have a staff in my hand. I don't have a pillar of smoke or a pillar of fire. I can't split waters. But there's one thing that I know for certain, that you can trust the one who does. Would you stand to your feet? As you stand to your feet, be reminded, you play a big part in what's going to happen next Sunday. A big part. Just by you being here. There's a little girl by the name of Olivia Landreth that is going to be baptized. You play a role in this. And this is not coaching. This is not a pep talk. But you be here, because you're a part of that. You also have another family. You're going to experience a great Sunday, because you've got another Sunday in which you've got a family of 2 kids that are walking, talking, school age, that have decided it's time to dedicate our children. And we want to do it with this people. Can I say this? Make it a priority if you can, because you play that role in that. Now you're ready to get out of the wilderness, right? Let's pray. God, thank you for the reminder. We need reminders. We're in good company, but thank you for the reminder that you're with us. And as we leave, not praying that we have an exit strategy, but I just pray that you remind us that you are with us. Not in miracle form, not in manna form, not bursting forth water from a rock. But every good thing that comes from your word today, remind us that you are faithful and that we can trust you. It's in Christ's name we pray. And all God's people said, amen. Love on